I was fortunate enough to have lunch with Sally just a week before she went into the hospital for the last time. And at age, she was just almost 96 at that time, that she was sharp as a tack. But Sally Swift's an interesting person. At a very young age, about the age of 13, Sally developed a terrific scoliosis or curvature in her back. And they think that perhaps the child had an undiagnosed polio attack. Her parents were told that she would never walk again and would never ride a horse. But Sally Swift's parents were very educated people, and her mother was a horsewoman, and their parents got that child back on a horse again. They also got her some wonderful teachers who taught her about the human body and how the body worked. And that was not something people taught much in the 1920s. But Sally attributes her teachers and her horseback riding to enable her to walk again, to live a full life. Sally is the author of 2 books, Centered Riding and Centered Riding 2. And Sally always taught horseback riding, but she also was the head of the American Holstein Association. She retired at the age of 67, and at the age of 70, at Denny Emerson's encouragement, Sally wrote the first book, Centered Riding. At age 90, Sally wrote her second book, Centered Riding 2, Further Explorations. Centered Riding talks about how our minds affect our bodies, and how our minds and our bodies affect our horse's body. Centered Riding, I like to say, is sort of a step-by-step progressive training of the rider. Just like we say that dressage is a step-by-step training of the horse. So we work a lot with rider's position, how the rider uses themselves. And what we've discovered is that if the rider uses themselves well, the horse generally follows suit. Now, Centered Riding has 6 basics. Sally called them the 6 basics. And those basics are soft eyes, breathing, centering, balance, grounding, and clear intent. These basics are the 6 tools that we use whenever we ride. We use them with beginner riders. We use them with Olympic riders. You will find that if you work from these 6 basics, your horse and your performance will improve. Now, the first thing we want to think about this morning, let's think about breathing. Because a couple of these horses were a little up when they came out into the arena. A little bit nervous, not bad. Let's talk about breathing. Breathing is a way that horses communicate with one another in the wild. In the wild, in a herd of horses, if one of the horses stops breathing, holds his breath, that's a sign to all the other horses, uh-oh, there could be trouble. I might need to get out of here. And even if the horse doesn't spook, they get ready in case they need to. When we ride, I like to think that we have a good partnership with our horse. And I like to think that we riders are the leaders in this partnership. If the horse is the leader, uh-oh, look out. So think for a minute, riders, what it takes to be a good leader. And one thing that will really help your horses is if you could begin to speak to your horse in a language that your horse understands. And one way you can do this is through your breathing. Horses are looking for an out breath. a sigh. And so when we ride, if we think a little bit about our breathing and breathing out, breathing deep, we can begin to relax our horse. We can also begin to get our horse to focus a little bit more on us. And Kelly, your horse is kind of listening and thinking, and you just keep doing that deep breathing. Now, you will find that if he gets a little up, it might help you if you sigh, or if you yawn. Oh, this is boring out in this arena today. Because yawning or sighing makes us take a big, deep breath. I can't promise you that breathing will always help, but I'll tell you a little breathing story. We had a centered riding instructor who lived up in Alaska. And if any of you have ever been to Alaska, you know it's very boggy. When that tundra melts, it's squishy and swampy. And so she was told that to get to the best riding trails, she needed to ride her horse down the railroad siding. Once she got down the railroad siding far enough, she'd see the trail. So she headed down the railroad tracks, was quite a ways to that trailhead, and all of a sudden she heard a train coming. She was in a fix because she couldn't gallop back to town in time. She couldn't go off to the side because of the bog. All she could do was to stand there, and she remembered Sally Swift's words about breathing. And she stood there at the side of the tracks, and she breathed, and she breathed. And the train went by, and you know how scary trains are. They spit gravel at you, they vibrate the ground. She kept breathing. The train passed, the horse held. It didn't bolt, didn't spook. She said at that point she got off and threw up. I can't promise you that breathing will always save your neck. I can promise you it never will hurt. Let's reverse direction, please, ladies. It will never hurt. Now, let's take this breathing just a step further this afternoon. I like to use my breathing on a horse to help it give the horse a signal that something's going to happen. There's going to be a change. And if you would like to do for me some walk, halt, walk transitions, I'd like to invite you to just think about, could you breathe, exhale, and then halt your horse? And when you're ready to go again, you can breathe, exhale, and walk. Now you can still use your hands. You can still use your seat. You could use your voice if you'd like. You could say, and hold. But think about how much easier it would be to be a horse if your rider could give you a little bit of a pre-signal that something's going to happen to prepare yourself. Think about how difficult it is to stop 1,000 pounds going fast. It's not easy to be a horse. So think how much nicer it would be if your rider gave you a little warning. Something's going to happen. Prepare your body. Good job. Now, riders, I'd like to suggest to you that as you ask for that down transition, stay a little bit softer and looser in your seat so that you think about sitting down on your horse rather than leaning backwards. So you want to sit down, not lean backwards. That's nicer, good. You want to sit down into your seat bones. Nice job. Okay. See, I need a volunteer. You want to volunteer? Come on in, Amanda. Amanda's riding a 4-year-old mare. Hasn't been out much. And just could you stand facing me?
Sure.
Now, I'd like to talk about soft eyes. And you other riders, if you want to turn in to watch, you may. Eyes are important when we ride on a horse, and it's important that we have what we call soft eyes. Now, I'm going to hold my hand up, and I'd like to ask everybody to stare at my fist. Oh, come on, stare at it. Really look at it. How do you feel when you're staring or glaring at something? How does your seat feel underneath you? Does your face feel tight or stiff? Did you stop breathing? Okay, so that's hard eyes. Hard eyes are staring, glaring eyes. Now, I can put my fist up again, and you can breathe. You can see my fist, but look at everything else around me as well. The floor, the ceiling, the riders, the audience. This is just the difference between having hard or soft eyes. What kind of eyes would a predator have? A predator has hard eyes. Say it's got hard eyes looking at that horse thinking, that looks like a nice meal. So when we ride, we need to guard a little against being predators, being hard eyes. We need to have soft eyes. Soft eyes open up our field of vision as well. And Amanda, your little horse is standing nice, so we're going to try and experiment with you. I'd like you to find something at the end of the arena, and I'd like you to stare at it with hard eyes. Can you do it? Now I'm going to take a walk around you, and when I disappear from your field of vision, your peripheral vision, your side vision, let me know, okay? You staring? Let me know when you can't see me anymore. Can't see me? Okay. Now I'm going to come up on your other side. Let me know when I show up again. You can see me? Okay. Okay, good. Okay, kind of shake that off. You can stop looking for a minute. Take a breath. Smile. That's great. Can you look at that same spot now while you're breathing with soft eyes? And look at the ceiling, the floor. You can see me. You can see the audience. Let me know when I disappear, okay? Can't see me? Okay. I'm going to sneak up on your other side. Let me know when you can see me. You can see me? Okay. Now, just as an example, Amanda, when you had hard eyes, I disappeared here. When you had soft eyes, boy, look how that opened up your circle of vision. So, and almost the same on this side. What kind of eyes would you like to have if you were riding in a warm-up arena at a big show? Yeah. You'd like to have soft eyes, eyes that open up your field of vision. Thanks, gang. Go ahead and go for a walk again. And so think about looking ahead with soft eyes. Thanks, Amanda. You're wonderful. Think about what you're looking at as you look out. Are you looking down at the ground? Or can you look out and look level? Can you continue to breathe? Now, I'm going to ask these riders to experiment a little bit with what they do with their eyes. I'm going to ask them to ride a little Now, it would be hard for us to know what the rider's doing with their eyes, but their horses might tell on them. So we'll kind of watch the horses and see if we can see a difference. And riders, notice whatever you want to notice. Does your horse feel different? Does your saddle feel different? Your seat? Does your breathing improve or get tight? Hannah, what do you notice? Anything special? With hard eyes, she starts to slow up and she gets more tense. And you told me today this horse gets a little nervous sometimes in crowds. So soft eyes might be very important to help her feel safe and relaxed in a crowd. How about your horse, Amanda? That's interesting. She said she picks her head up in hard eyes, and when your eyes go soft, she puts it back. How about you, Kelly? He speeds up and tenses in hard eyes, and if you breathe and let your eyes go soft, does that help? We're getting all different answers, and all the answers are good ones. What about your horse? What's that? Couldn't tell the difference. You know, I noticed that horse slowing up a little bit at times. I don't know if that was it, but having ridden that horse this morning, Sarah, that might be a clue, because she can kind of slow up at times. But I'm not sure. You're on her and I'm not. How about your horse, Kaylee? Kelly, sorry. When they're soft, he's slower, and when they're hard, he kind of. Okay, so different experiences, but all of them are valid. There really is a change that horses notice with how we use our eyes. Let's reverse direction, please. The other thing, I was speaking to somebody out in the audience this morning. If you have a horse that does get spooky, be aware of what you are doing with your eyes. Because if you stare at the attack mailbox and you think, oh my God, it's going to spook. I knew it's going to spook. He's going to spook. But if you see the attack mailbox and you look beyond it to where you'd like to go, and you say to your horse, I know the attack mailbox is there, but I'll take care of you. It will help. It will help. Horses react to what we look at. So be careful when you work around horses with what you do with your eyes. Now, Sally Swift talked about balance. And, let's see. Hannah, would you mind coming in for me for a minute? Sally Swift referred to balance as building blocks. Building blocks. So Hannah's a good sport, and I'm going to take a chainsaw, Hannah, and I'm going to saw your body up into blocks. Is that all right? Okay, so we'll zip off her head. Zip. Maybe her shoulders are a block, maybe your midsection, maybe your hips, upper leg, lower leg, feet. We've sawed her all up into blocks. Think for a minute about a set of little kids' building blocks. What happens if one of the blocks isn't stacked up straight on the stack? It falls over. Thank you. Okay, I'll put you back together again now. But if we look at Hannah's position, we're looking for a fairly balanced line of head over shoulders, shoulders over hips, hips over heels. That line can vary a little bit your shoulders, looking out level is going to really help that head. Now, Western riders, also be aware of, if you are steering with one hand, is your rein hand, your rein shoulder, ahead of the other shoulder? Because a lot of times, Western riders develop a little bit of a twist. And so we have to be careful when we ride Western that we keep our shoulders square. Because if we have that little bit of a twist that leans toward our rein hand, that's going to encourage our horse to turn really well in one direction, and he's going to have trouble in the other direction. So side-to-side balance, front-to-back balance is so important. Let's go for a trot, riders. Keep your soft eyes ahead, looking where you want to go. And Kelly, you're doing a really good job of thinking about where you want to go. And just breathe, just breathe, just breathe. And he doesn't have to stay right on the rail. He doesn't have to stay right on the rail. If he needs to come in a little bit, that's okay. Because we need to get relaxation before we get anything else. Relaxation is number one. And we have to train for relaxation. You have to train your horse to have a relax button. So think about some deep breathing, Kelly. Think of sighing, yawning. And your little horse is reaching down into the bridle nicely, Amanda. Good job. Good. Those shoulders look nice and square, Kaylee. Be a little careful if the rein hand is off to the side and not directly over the mane, because that is going to tighten one rein just a little bit. So you may want to just feed your rein up a touch and keep your hand a little bit more to center and see what your horse does. Okay, and let's all breathe and walk. Just breathe and walk. Take your time. Always take your time in a transition when we're practicing and training. Because if we try to do things too quick, sometimes our horse will startle or lose his balance. And so often when a horse loses his balance, he hurries to catch his balance again. Let's change direction, please. And Kelly, would you mind riding in for a moment, please? I'd like to talk about having grounded feet. Grounding is another one of Sally Swift's basics. And the idea of grounded feet is a feeling of having your feet firmly on the ground. When we get up on a horse's back, for whatever reason, when we go up in the air, we lose our sense of where the ground is. Now this sounds funny, but bear with me. We can see our feet when we get up there. You can move your feet, right? But we've lost the balance receptors that we humans have when we stand on the ground. And we're very good at being balanced through our feet. It's because we walk on two legs. I'd like to lead the audience through an exercise to help you find grounded feet. Riders, you might be able to do this in the stirrups, I don't know. But I'm going to invite the audience to just quietly stand if you'd like to participate. so they're not locked backwards or locked forwards. I'd like you to pretend on this cold March day that you're at the beach. You're in bare feet. Sounds good, doesn't it? Let's do some white sand and blue water. I'd like you to take one of your feet to the beach, and I would like you to think about walking down in the sand where that sand is damp. You know that perfect spot where the waves wash over it? And as you walk, you leave footprints behind. I'd like you to feel the print that that foot is making. Your big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, baby toe. Feel how the ball of your foot presses into the sand, the outside edge, the heel, and feel how that warm, damp sand fills up your instep, behind your toes, between your toes, until your foot's making a really deep, clear print in the sand. Now, you might notice that your 2 feet feel a little different. Do you like that feeling of that grounded foot in the sand? Let's take the other foot there. So again, in your mind, feel that footprint. Big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, baby toe. Let the sand fill up your instep, behind your toes, between your toes. Feel the ball of your foot press into the sand, the outside edge, your heel. And now you probably feel pretty heavy and secure in your feet. I bet I could come up to most of you, and if I gave you a little push, I couldn't push you over. That's the idea of being grounded, connected to the ground, balanced over our feet. Thank you, folks. You can sit down. Now, you may have noticed earlier, as I was getting our riders warmed up, I went around and tapped their feet. Kelly's the only rider who didn't get her feet tapped, so I want to make sure she has that experience. And to tap her feet, I'm going to make my fingers like a little, kind of like a little bird beak. And Kelly, is it okay if I handle your feet? You want to just drop your stirrups? Okay. What I'm going to do, folks, is I'm going to tap on the whole bottom of Kelly's foot. Her heel, her toes, her instep. This tapping, and you can do this to your friends, you can do this to your kids, do this to somebody before they go in the show ring. It's going to help connect their mind to the bottom of their foot. Now I'm going to ask Kelly if there's a spot on her foot that feels a little different. It's probably a little bit at or behind the ball of her foot. Right in there, Kelly? Feel a little dull, or do you feel a little tingle up your leg, or a little dull? Okay, different people feel different things. Some people get a zing, like when the doctor hits your knee with the hammer. And I'm going to pick up your foot, if I may, Kelly. I've got you. And I'm going to set your stirrup across that spot. Do I have it? Is that where you usually have your stirrup? It's a little further back, I'll bet, isn't it? I'm going to do this on the other side, folks, so don't worry. Kelly, I'm going to check your springs. And I'm just going to pick up your foot, okay? There you go. Okay, pretty good springs. Good hip, good knee, good ankle. Go ahead and put your stirrup back in the old spot. About right there. Do a spring check. What happened? Doesn't go up as much. So let's just experiment today and try that, see what we get. I'm just going to bring your hip back a little. Good. Okay, I'll do the other side for you folks. Right there. That's okay. Is that it? And we'll check her springs on this side, and she jumps. So springs are important for people who jump, because when you come down off a big jump, You got to land on your feet, not on your back. Now go to your old spot. Let's see what happens. Yeah, she likes to carry them on her toes. Not so good. Okay. So George Morris says, a little more back on the foot. Keep your leg under you. Okay. And Kelly, if you want to turn your toes up, just a touch. Not a lot, but just a touch. It's okay. Okay. So my other riders, I've grounded their feet. And you go ahead and ride. You're good, Kelly. Thank you. So they discovered where their feet are in the stirrups. Now, when your feet are grounded, your legs are going to be out, down, and around your horse with that secure feeling of being on the ground. It transfers your weight and your center of gravity down. And that's where we want to be on a horse. We want to be down and around that horse. We want to be solid on that horse. There's an old cowboy saying that to stay on a horse, if you want to stay on a horse, you keep a leg on both sides and your head in the middle. I mean, how true is that? That's how we're going to stay on. We're going to keep a leg on both sides. We're going to keep our head in the middle. Now, I'm a little worried. I've got some pretty good Western horsemanship riders out here. But I'm a little worried because sometimes they get their heels down so far that their heels get jammed. Their leg gets jammed. And you know, I talked a lot about springs this morning. We want to make sure that Western riders have good springs too. Because if we brace against our horse's movement, it's going to affect the way our horses move. Let's go ahead and go for a trot, gang. Posting trot English riders. Now riders, there's another thing to think about when you ride a horse, and that is having clear intent. Clear intent. You need to be able, or you need to know where you'd like your horse to go and how you'd like your horse to get there. A lot of times when people ride horses, they think that because the horse is a living thing and it has a brain, it knows where it's going. It does not know where it's going. And you're supposed to be the leader. So it's important that riders are able to be clear in their intent and to tell their horses where they'd like to go. Riders, can you see these? I have two cones here in the middle at B and E. Could you ride to the inside of this cone and then go back out to the corner? Next time, you get another chance on the other side. And you keep on breathing, using your building blocks, keeping your soft eyes ahead. So we're going to bring our horses off the corner. Bring them inside the cone, soft eyes and breathing. Just keep breathing, yawning, sighing, Kelly. And if you find a beat to stay on, Kelly, it would help your horse stay on the beat. You might think, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4. Keep your horse on a nice trot beat. So this is clear intent. We're asking our horse to do a pattern. We're bringing our horse in off the rail. When we do a lot of rail riding, we really aren't practicing clear intent. Because when we ride all the time on the rail, we begin to use the rail to steer our horses. So we like to challenge our riders a little bit. Now riders, I'm going to ask you to ride in for a moment. And the last basic is what Sally Swift referred to as the center. The center is our center of gravity, it's our center of balance, it's our center of power, it's our center of movement. And if you would like to find your center, how much time do I have? Not much. Okay. If you'd like to find your center, riders, if you can, put one hand, and you can do this in your seats, folks, put one hand on your lower abdomen with your thumb on your belly button. If your horse will stand, put your other hand on your lower back, but only do it if you think your horse will stand. Breathe into this area between your two hands. That's your center. It's down further than a lot of people think. Can you breathe, exhale, and breathe down even a little deeper, a little heavier? Sally Swift liked to talk and think of the center as being like a ball. And Sally, as a child, the only way she could balance to get up and walk is she had this funny image of what she called that ball that sat in her center. She visualized a heavy ball right in this part of her body. Sally knew that in order to walk or move, she had to center, find that ball, and then she'd breathe and drop that ball into the mud. Now this is an image. This is an image. But Sally never told anybody about this her entire life. And it wasn't until she got into her late 60s and began to study the martial arts, Tai Chi, that Sally discovered that that ball really had purpose. Center of gravity, center of defense. If you're going to be knocked off your feet by your opponent, or you're going to knock somebody else off their feet, if you're grounded and centered, you're almost invincible. It's when our centers go up here, or up here, or we get top heavy, or we start leaning over, that we lose our balance. So, riders, you can get your center anytime you want by thinking, breathe, breathe out, drop that ball into the mud. I'm going to do something kind of fun for as we wrap up here. You see this ball has a little face? If we imagine we have a ball that sits in our center with little eyes, I'm going to invite the riders to steer from down here instead of with just their hands or just their legs. So what I'd like you to do, riders, I'd like you to ride in and out among these combs, and I'd like you to turn your center where you'd like to go. Turn your center where you'd like to go. Notice I'm just turning a little bit and a little bit. I'm not going, because I'll drop a shoulder, won't I? When you turn from your center, you will find that your hands come on automatically, your legs come on automatically, your weight comes on automatically, and it makes it very easy for your horse to understand what you want. Now, if I was teaching a bunch of little kids at a 4-H practice, I might say to the little kids, point your belly button where you want your pony to go. If I'm teaching cowboys, I say, point adjust your belt buckle where you want your horse to go. But your center riders, point your center where you'd like your horse to go. Can you weave in and among these cones? Go any place in the arena except run over me or the other riders? Breathe, soft eyes, building blocks, go for it. Clear intent. Clear intent. Have a plan. Be willing to change your plan. Have soft eyes. Be aware of where the cones are, the other riders in the ring. Breathe to help your horse find focus, security. Turn from your center. Turning from the center keeps us on the brake so that we don't lean. Horses need their riders to stay on top. And so we need to swivel a little bit, turn from our center. Not real clear intent there. You can do even better, Sarah. Remember, he's a big horse. He can't go as close to the cone as you could. It's kind of like driving one of those Mini Coopers when you're riding a horse. Let's pick up a trot. Keep your soft eyes. Turn from your center. Have a plan. Work at keeping your eyes ahead and not looking down. Riders that look down eventually run over other riders. And they lose their feel for the horse. Very nice work. Good, Kelly. They lose their feel. Riders, I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap up because I am out of time. Well, no, I'm not. I've got 15 minutes, don't I? Oh, you guys are supposed to tell me that. Good. Okay, we're doing good. Started at 12:15. I am going to have our riders come in and tell me how the turning from the center is working. How's that turning from the center working for you, Sarah? Okay? Sometimes your hands get stuck resting on the saddle. And so you might want to think about heavy elbows. Let your elbows bend just a little bit. How's that turning from the center working for you, Hannah? Pretty good, huh? Like it? Yeah, I thought you would. When we turn from the center, all of our aids come on automatically. We don't have to take the time to think about it. Inside leg at the girth, outside leg behind the girth, inside hand goes here, outside hand goes here. Everything works together. This is especially important if you're a rider who rides at speed or you jump. You might want to keep your hands up a little bit, softly. That's it, Kelly. That's it. Because if you just push your hands down, that's a little hard on his mouth, especially with a kimberwick, because that's a little bit of a curve bit. Okay, riders, ride on over. And just come over to me. me for a moment and stop when you're ready, in your own time. How'd that turning from the center work for you, Amanda? She turned really tight, okay? So you might need to think about not turning quite so much. Just a little bit, and a little bit, and a little bit. Because this horse it's not a real big horse. And she's young. She doesn't have real good balance yet. And she really responds to if your weight changes too much, or especially if you lean. So with her, you want to think about just keeping that little swivel and making sure you stay on top with her, because that's going to help her feel more secure. Who didn't I ask? Yeah, he's doing better. He's doing better. And, you know, if this is a day where the rail makes him nervous, then we bring him in off the rail so that he has a good experience. So next time, you know, he'll feel a little bit more confident. He's a little shy. He's not so sure about that audience yet. Okay, so I'd like to have you do another exercise. And this exercise is an exercise in transitions for the rider. What I'm going to ask you to do is to go from a sitting or a posting trot to a two-point position. Now, let's review our two-point position and how we get there. Two-point position means we're going to just lean slightly forward and come out of our saddle a little bit. And you care if I use you as a demo, Amanda? Riders, I'm going to review with you how to do it. One, if you're riding English, you may want to shorten your reins, because when you come up into two-point, your hands are going to go a little further forward. You would think of it for you as your jump position, wouldn't you, Kelly? Okay? Step two, this one's important for everybody. Pretend you have an imaginary seat belt on. And I'd like you to think about folding over your imaginary seat belt. So you're going to think about, can I fold over my imaginary seat belt and stand up a little bit at the same time? Okay, so let's give that a try. Western riders, you need to be able to come up too. Now, I'm going to come around and just help you a little bit. You're going to make sure your feet are under you. You're going to fold a little at your seat belt, and you don't have to actually clear the saddle. That's a light seat, we call it. You're just barely out, aren't you? When you sit back down, just touch down and unfold. Well done. Very good. And let's see. Go ahead and sit down for me. Can you fold at your seatbelt and stand up at the same time? Good. When you fold at your seatbelt, your derriere is going to go a little backwards. That's good. We don't want to just stand up and bend forward. We need that fold. And fold at your seatbelt. And you can just come up a little bit. Yep, your stirrups are a little long for this, but that's okay. Okay? Now, you're my jumping rider. So this is really important for you, Kelly. And when you fold at the seatbelt, let your bottom drop a little backwards, because we never want to come up too far when we jump. When we jump, we want to actually fold our ankles, and the short stirrups will help us do that. I always like to keep my backside fairly close to the saddle, so if something goes wrong, I'm down on it. If you lean forward and just go up over the horse's neck and they pull a dirty stop or a run out, that's when you're in trouble. How's that work for you? Let's see what you can do. Can you fold at your seatbelt and come up? There you are. That's it. And come down. The fold at the seatbelt, folks, helps us identify where our hips are. Where our hips are. So if you imagine you have an imaginary lap belt on, that'll help you fold at the hips. What do most riders do? They come up and bend or hinge at their backs. And we really need to find our hips to be good riders. Okay, let's head out on the rail Boy, if they ever pull that on you in the show ring, when you go to the left, your left hand is inside the ring. Judges will pull that on you all the time to try to fake you out. So there's a little hint. If you're going to the left, your left hand's inside the ring. Kelly, he can come off the rail a little and breathe, because we're still on relaxation with him, and that's fine. Okay, could we pick up a little bit of a 2-point or a light seat and a walk, please? Now, if you've got your heels braced down too hard, you're going to feel stiffness. So just keep a little softness there. Do you feel the difference? That's nice, Kaylee. And that looks different too. I'll tell you right now, if I was judging you in a horse show, I would go for the soft seat. I'm not to see who gets their heels down the most. I want to see a soft seat that encourages a horse to move his best. Okay, let's touch down. Let's try this in trot now. So let's pick up a trot. We can go from posting to 2-point, or if you'd like, Western riders, you can go from sitting to 2-point. And this helps us think about where are our feet, keeping our feet underneath us. If you have trouble coming up, then you need to check in with where are my feet. Are my feet a little too far forward? Are my feet a little too far backwards? Western riders, go ahead and let your horses stride out a little bit for this exercise. It's okay. And Western riders, if you'd like to post, feel free. Even if we have horses that we use in Western pleasure, kind of look like those ankles are jammed again, Kaylee, kind of check in with that. Even if we have a horse that we use for Western pleasure, we don't want to have it on slow speed all the time. Because for training, we need to move that horse out. We need to free up the muscles in his back, allow him to swing through his hindquarters, engage. And engagement is how far underneath the horse's belly can he swing his hind legs. How far can he reach with his hind legs toward the girth? And just find a rhythm for your breathing there, Kelly. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, sigh. And 2-point to posting or sitting. Go ahead, Kelly. Now you might find, Kelly, that if you turn his head a little to the inside, instead of into the rail, he might feel a little more balanced. Yes, that's okay. And if he needs to circle, that's fine. But find that rhythm to your breathing. Some riders like to sing or hum when they ride. And that can be a good way to find a beat and stay on the beat. That can be a good way to remember to breathe if you sing or hum. Even in a Western horse, we want to see some softness and lift in his back. And that's why it's important that we get off the horse's back at times. Allow him to free up his back. And just breathe and find your rhythm again. And with him, Kelly, be careful not to turn him too sharp. He worries a little bit about balance. Let's change direction, please. Can we change direction at a trot? Now, all of you saw the demo this morning. Kelly, I'm going to have you just work on relaxation for right now. And that's a pretty good trip down that side. It's staying a little straighter. But my other 4 riders, I'd like to invite you to experiment with that dancing knees exercise. Good. Good. Very nice. How's that working for you, Amanda? Can you find those dancing knees? And Hannah, I can't see you. Kind of be aware, soft eyes, yeah. Be aware of the other horses. You're going to really need those dancing knees, Hannah, for sitting trot, because you're a dressage rider, and they're really looking for that sitting trot. And the secret to sitting trot is to have free springs in your legs. Very nice work, Kelly. Excellent. Excellent job. Now you can experiment, Kaylee, by intentionally tightening up one of your joints. And notice if your horse changes. And don't get mad at him if he changes. Oh, look at that. Oh, she's good. What'd you tighten? Your knee? Did you feel how rough that got? Yeah. So you've got to have, I'm going to say, the same quality in all of your springs. So we go 2-point to posting or 2-point to sitting. In Hannah's case, I'll ask her to do an exercise in 3 seats. Hannah, I'd like you to do posting to 2-point, do a little dancing knees, then when your pony's back is up and round, could you sit for a few strides, a little bit of sitting trot. Good, and she popped her head up, go back to posting again. Good job, good job. So we get our 2-point position, our posting to get our rhythm, get the beat. We use 2-point to come off our horse's back, to let him get his back up. And then when our horse's back is up and we think he's ready, we can touch down and do a little sitting to get a nice sitting trot. So when you feel as though she's ready, you can touch down, do a little sitting trot, and as soon as it feels rough, Hannah, you go right back to posting. Well done. Well done. Okay, your horse is doing better, Kelly. Good. Now, what happens when you shorten your reins and pick up your 2-point position? Does he keep his rhythm? 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So, Kelly, your horse needs a lot of work with rider transitions so that when you change your seat, he doesn't feel the need to speed up. Soft eyes ahead. Look ahead. Okay, let's go for a walk. Breathe and walk a minute. Breathe and walk a minute. Good. Let's change direction, please. Okay. And we need to wrap up, gang. So if you want to ride in, I would like to ask each of you if there is one thing that you could remember from today's ride that you might like to take home and use again, what it would be. If there's one thing you'd like to remember from the ride today, what it would be. Anybody want to start? You kind of like the idea of the springy ankles a little bit. Your horse did too. So I think if you keep those softer joints in your pleasure classes, he's going to give you a prettier, rounder trot, and that's going to really up your score. It's a good thing to take away. How about you? You like the grounding, the tapping that changed your seat? Yeah, most people like that, so that's a good one to take away. Kelly, you like turning from the center. Yeah. Horses will learn very easily to turn from the center and not so much reins. So that was a good one. How about you, Sarah? You like the turning from the center too? That's a good one. It's the secret to having invisible aids. The judge won't know how you're doing it. And how about you, Hannah? You like the dancing knees? I think that's a good one for you to take home because that's going to help your sitting trot. So, nice job, everyone. Can we give these young people a round of applause? Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Peggy. Peggy will be back in the arena at 2 o'clock with our driving clinic. I have some door prizes to announce. The next 3 tickets